Jessie, it's Oberst. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing today?
Good. Did I call at the right time?
Yeah, perfect, man.
If you don't have the most interesting IMDb bio, I think you're in the top 10.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I actually started writing for a magazine that was based out of California, and they wanted a bio, and I was like, well, here you go. And it was kind of a test to see if I would fit in ultimately. And long story short, I ended up leaving the magazine pretty quickly after that, and kind of started doing my own thing. It's
great, man. You're a screenwriter too, right?
So I do the movie review stuff. I also, occasionally step in, for, background work. I'm a video producer by day. So my 9 to 5, I actually work for a college, and we create all the content for that college.
So then when you watch these crappy little horror films that we're in, you understand like what the budget allowed and...
Yeah, it's pretty neat though too. Whenever I do get on set, like I get sometimes invited to these little horror films, and I like to see the how much planning went into a lot of these things, and what kind of cameras they're using, and sometimes it amazes me because I'll see some of the process, but then once I actually see the whole thing come together, I'm amazed at what some of these editors are able to do.
A lot of it's in editing, coloring and editing today.
Yeah.
I mean, editing can save. Well, it can't always save a bad film. I remember when I was in Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies, and the editor wrote me on Facebook, and he had the 30-second trailer, and I was like, "Oh my God, this trailer is awesome! How's the film coming?" And he said, "Try him." That was his response, and you get the best. You get the best you can, but yeah, the budgets range and the possibilities flow with the budget, wildly. One time you do one that has $3 million, and then you do one that's got a couple $100,000, and you do the best you can.
Yeah, and I like that. Like it's almost like that's kind of when, like we just recently shot a commercial and we had zero budget, and it was kind of fun in a way to see what we could do. Like we'll put our heads together and see what, kind of create the best we can, and because that's all we have.
I shot last weekend in LA. I shot Age of the Living Dead, which is a series. I think on a mid-budget. It was picked up by Fox Asia last year, and they're hoping for bigger this year. But we shot in an old set house in LA called DC Stages.
Yeah.
And most of it was from the 70s, really dark, like dark wood, not much light at all. It's all very, very dark, very late 60s, early 70s looking. And so they made great use of it. Like they just did like little rim lights and halo lights, accent lights. They didn't try to flood it. And it looked damn good on the monitor. It's like, this looks like $1 million just because you guys lit it creatively.
I'll definitely look into that. I mean, just looking over, what you have in production and what you have coming up, there's almost like a who's who of what types of films you could get into if you want to, as far as like the viewer goes. Considering that, and Bill, you've done, like, you have over 187 credits. For someone that doesn't know who you are, or is just getting into the genre, where do you think they should start?
I would start with a recurring character I did on Criminal Minds, because it's like Adrian Barbeau. It was a horror-themed episode because the director, Matthew Gray Bublé, was in the cast. He's a big horror fan.
Yeah.
So he wrote this thing, and Adrian Barbeau is my mother, and Tobin Bell's my father, and they screwed around when they were teenagers, and I'm the result of it. So years later. But the reason that I say it is because, like, the monsters that I like I call them wounded monsters. Like, the monsters that society helped to make by the way they treated them. I mean, they were screwed up to begin with, but society didn't help any.
Yeah.
And so the makeup artist on this is named Chris. I'm struggling for his last name, but he worked with Tarantino. He's great actor and makeup artist, and he played the bride in the original Kill Bill. I played the groom in the Kill Bill, and he's done all of Tarantino's makeup, so he's a big Chaney fan. So we had a product of incest, and he said, let's make this an homage to Lon Chaney. So we gave him kind of a stoop posture and a really big ear, which he borrowed from American Horror he was working on at the time. And he's a very sympathetic, dark character with malevolence that's not all of his own making, and that's what I love the best. And then from that, as an entree, I'd go to something like Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies, or my little art house projects that I really, really love. Like I just did one called Dis, shot in Mexico. It's non-linear. It doesn't explain much at all. It just literally puts you down into hell.
Yeah.
And you're in a hellish situation, and there's not much dialogue and there's not much explanation of what's going on. It's just very brutal and very disturbing, and I really dig that kind of thing too.
I wanted to mention Circus of the Dead because you mentioned Lon Chaney, and the makeup for that role is definitely inspired by him. And I've read that he's pretty big. He's your like cinematic role model.
He is. He's my major role model because of the way he approaches monsters. He said, "I want to show the humanity in the monster."
Excellent.
And that's, to me, that's everything. Like if you don't have the humanity there, the original Phantom was as close as anybody ever got to what that character's supposed to be. He was born that way. Nobody threw acid in his face. He wasn't deformed. He's not half beautiful and half kind of messed up. He's a freak. He's a human oddity. And in the novel, his family sells him to this traveling circus who takes him to Persia. And he ends up as a performing monkey, and he learns these magic tricks. But that's who Eric is. And he is that because society kept telling him, you're a monster, you're a monster, you're a monster. And he said, okay, here's your monster.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Chaney's work and what I try to bring. Like even Papa Corn in Circus of the Dead.
Yeah.
We had that little... I tried to give him a humanity where you could see that, yes, he's a serial killer, he's a necrophiliac, and he's a rapist, he's probably going to kill you. But that you could see that for him, being a circus clown was his job, and he took pride in it, his job. He had a special voice that he used when he was the clown, and so forth, and tried to make him a little bit of a human.
Yeah, see, I'm actually I'm in Houston right now, and I attend a lot of conventions, down here in this area, and I run into Billy and Parrish quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention, that film not only because of the connection, but also because you're going to be doing a reunion in February.
Yeah, they call it classic. I haven't done one for Circus of the Dead, mainly, really, Jessie, because the movie, I could only watch it once. I don't think I can watch it again. When I watched it, it was a cold, rainy day in L.A., and Billy sent me the screener, and it disturbed me so much that I had to go outside, even though it was raining, and just look at the sun, and remind myself that there were birds and clouds. I found it emotionally draining. I know that sounds stupid because you're like, oh, you played an evil clown and you played it. You're being dramatic, but it was really emotionally draining because the outlook of the guy I played was there's no meaning in life. Nothing means anything.
Yeah.
And I found that horrifying, probably the most horrifying of anything I've ever played. That one and Father Simon in a Jordan McClure movie called Children of Sorrow. Both of them, when I watched them, I was like, I don't think I can watch this again because the meaninglessness horrifies me.
The one movie that I would say emotionally drained me, and I haven't seen it in a while, so don't quote me on it, but was Coyote. That movie, I was exhausted when it was over. And
Trevor, I'm going to see Trevor in 2 weeks shooting his new one, and I'm going to tell him you said that because that's exactly was the intended effect. Thank you. It was the same for me.
Yeah, I put in, I think I watched, Wild Eye sent me a big box of movies, and I was kind of just jumping back and forth between, just picking up one and going to the next. And I jumped from Swamphead to Coyote, and Coyote, man, it was exhausting. And I know that was the intent just because of the type of content it was. But that was my introduction to you. And I wanted to mention that.
That's a good introduction. Thank you. That, Dis, Circus of the Dead, the more disturbing stuff that troubles me, that's like, if anybody cared for an intro to me, that would be the best intro because that's the dark stuff.
Yeah.
Trevor wrote me after he got the edit for Coyote done, and he said, we're screwed. I've made a movie nobody's ever going to watch. And I said, why? He said, watching this movie feels like being mentally ill. It feels like you're inside mental illness.
Yes.
And I was like, well, but that's the movie you made. Go with it.
Yeah, why not? Let's sell it. Like based on that. That's because it's hard to deliver that type of ambiance. If you're going for that, you couldn't be able to do it twice. So jumping around here, I do want to get to Devil's Junction, but I also wanted to mention Three from Hell. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I'm curious as to the timeline of things. Like, when did you hear about, you were going to be in Three from Hell, and then, Devil's Junction, and then the Bill Moseley, like, how did that all come to be, and, what was you guys' reaction when you found out you were going to be doing both of these movies?
My agent wrote me last year and said, Rob wants you in Three from Hell. He'll decide what the character is, and he'll decide, how big it is, and he'll decide when. You just get to say yes or no.
Yeah.
That's the way he rolls. And I said, yes, of course. And it was very secretive when he did the scripts. It's the only production I've ever worked with that did not do email scripts. Everything was by courier. So if there was any script changes, you'd get a fresh new script by courier.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, everything watermarked. He's very old school and very in charge on his sets. So I've seen Bill at cons, but we hadn't worked together. And I saw him there and worked with his wife in the scene and him. And Lucinda, she's great. She's theater trained. And it's my background, so we really got along. Anyway, so yeah, hanging out with Bill was fantastic. And then shortly after that, I got a call that said that they wanted me and Bill to do this evil ventriloquist dummy movie. I was like, well, if he's going to do it, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
It's just saying evil ventriloquist dummy movie kind of makes me smile.
Yeah, and
then we met up in Detroit, and he had shaved his beard and cropped his hair, and we did this thing and decided that we should make it, kind of big and over the top because that's what it was. With
Devil's Junction, like, ultimately, I think what attracted me to the film was not only you guys being attached, but also the whole puppet thing. Ever since I was a kid, those types of puppets and dolls have always been kind of an issue for me, and I really liked your character, Mr. Jolly, because he was almost like the living embodiment of a doll, and I was curious as to how much you had control over that character, and also how much of what we saw was improv from you.
You're really smart, man, because nobody else has mentioned that. That's exactly. They brought Jeff Broadstreet on. I started talking to Jeff about the character, and that's exactly what Jeff said. He said, let's make him look as much like a doll as possible. And I said, ooh, give him gloves. And Jeff said, white gloves. And he was like, yeah. And making really bright colors. And I said, well, I got this shirt that I killed 6 women in a movie called The Devil Within 10 years ago, and I still got the shirt.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, bring that, and we'll give him a pendant. So, yeah, we dressed him that way and then plastered his hair down so it would look kind of plastic. We did want him to look. I decided that, and a lot of it, yeah, the answer is a lot. It was the character in the improv. Every night I would think of new things and write to Jeff and say, could we change this in the script? Could we change this in the script? And I won about half of those.
I think my favorite thing was the hair. The hair is what sold me on the character, and the eyes. So I would definitely, like, if it was the hair your idea, because
yes,
dude, that's crazy. That was my favorite thing about the character itself, and then the character.
Thank you.
Kept me, anytime the film would start to get stale, it was Mr. Jolly that kind of pulled me back in.
Jessie, thank you, man. And that's my favorite part of Papa Corn was his little curl. And I decided he was really particular about his hair, and he had to keep slicking and making sure his curl was right in place.
Yeah.
And Mr. Jolly was the same way. That's his look. I decided, too, that Mr. Jolly's relationship with Handy Dandy, his main puppet,
that,
Handy Dandy was really the boss. And so that's why I asked Jeff if I could improv this piece. And we didn't get everything in I wanted, but we got a little bit of it, which was the scene where I think the character of Rosie he didn't want to play the game that we're trying to play to torture him. Don't blame him. So he said, "Oh, I'm not going to play the bullshit game." And so then I asked Jeff, "Well, can we have like Mr. Jolly say, Randy?" You go, "What's the matter, Mr. Jolly? Rosie won't play." "Oh, I'll get Rosie to play." It's like, you always know what to say and do, Handy. Like, I thought it was really funny to have like this really screwed up adult that look to the ventriloquist dummy for solace and comfort.
Yeah, see, what I liked about that role, and it was really cool because like you were playing almost like two characters, and that's like exactly what I'm talking about as far as keeping me and the other viewers interested. So that's awesome. How, like, I know that this set was a dilapidated, like a abandoned TV set, and I don't want to bore you with questions like necessarily about that because I know you've probably been asked a million times. Was there other things there? Did any of that get used on set? But I do want
there was a television camera that was used and some lights. Yeah, go ahead.
But like, how did that compare to like other low budget films like that you've been on? Like, was the set similar, or was this a step up? How did you feel on set ultimately?
No, this is great. This is great because it gave some added production value that the budget didn't have. When we shot, did you actually take this Lollipop, the Facebook app?
What's that?
Take this Lollipop, the Facebook app that I was in?
No.
Well, anyway, it was shot. It won an Emmy. It was really, really, really helped me. It's the most popular Facebook app of all time at the time when it came out in 2012. But we shot it at Linda Vista Hospital in L.A., which is also a dilapidated space.
Gotcha.
And, there's something about those old dilapidated actual buildings with pieces falling off. I mean, most people don't. If you have a real big budget, you recreate that stuff. But for a low budget to be able to get into something like that, that was awesome. There were all kinds of spaces down in the basement. Little nicks and, corners and crevices where you'd find old stuff piled up. It was really great.
Yeah, I'll have
to help the character.
I'll have to check out the app. I'm using like an old iPhone 7, so like those kind of things, if no one tells me about them, then usually they're not downloaded on my phone. I'm lucky to even, be able to pull up Facebook. But
I hear you.
I guess I really liked the movie. Like I said, it was definitely something I wasn't aware of until I got the press release, and I know it's like they're doing the VOD on Halloween. So to kind of wrap up, I wanted to Halloween is coming up, and what do you think of the idea of changing Halloween from the 31st to the last Saturday of the month?
Who wants to do that?
Apparently, it's one of those online petitions that's kind of gaining some traction.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I think it's like they're using the excuse that it's a safety thing, but I think it's just more of so the parents don't have to like rush home on a Thursday or a Wednesday. But ultimately, I just kind of like the idea or the. I like the hustle and bustle of the 31st. I don't know.
I think it's that's a horrible idea, and I'd like to know in what ways I can kill cinematically, of course, everyone who's in favor of it. This is awful.
Yeah.
These people should have their skin flayed off, cinematically speaking, of course. That's a terrible idea because Halloween is tied to All Saints Day and All Souls Day, which follows it. That's what it is. It's All Hallows Eve. Same if you change Halloween, I mean, what do you do with Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, which they love to celebrate too? That's also no, they're all together. That's All Hallows Eve, and the next day is All Saints Day. No.
Excellent. I love that. And I agree with you 100%. Before I let you go, is there anything else you want to mention about, we talked about Three from Hell, Devil's Junction, Cult Classic Convention, and Circus of the Dead. Is there anything you want to throw out there?
I just want to say that your people who read your blog, I know that they really care about horror and these indie filmmakers, and I want to thank them for supporting us. I mean, it sounds cliche, but on a world where you can have the Avengers on one tab and one of our movies on the other tab, you have to make some allowances, and people do, and it's really, really great to know that there are people who will say, you know what, this is a medium or low-budget horror movie, but it's got a lot of heart, and people are into it, and it's fun, and I'm going to watch it and not compare it to a multi-million-dollar picture. And I really, really like that. I appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Bill. Here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing, and you, sir, you're doing just fine. I will.
Thanks, man.
I'll definitely see you in Bastrop.
I hope our paths cross again. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too, sir. I will see you in Bastrop, and I also attend Texas Frightmare every year, so I will. I'll definitely see you, and I'll come up and say something weird, so that way you'll know who I am.
Do it. Tell me about your seminal movie, and then I'll know it's you.
Excellent, man. Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.